My name is Pete Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of Ag Launch, and this is Jade Clark, the Director of Community Impact. I want to welcome you to the 5th Annual Ag Launch Field Day and our first try to do this virtually. We thank you for taking the time to be here. If you don't know, Ag Launch is focused on helping farmers create the farms of the future and transforming communities through that process. The theme of this field day is building in the face of uncertainty. And that is one thing that is certain, is that there's so many different factors going on, but we think this is the right time for agriculture. It's an incredible time for farmers and communities that they serve to redouble efforts to deliver food, leverage new innovations, and seek new rethinking on how our industry can work. Today you will hear a lot of different approaches, ideas, and we invite you into our network. It's a great, awesome group of people with great technologies, great ideas, and farmers now across the country, and we invite you all in. For us at Ag Launch, Farms of the Future is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it's a way of thinking about farms, large and small, that bring increased value to the farmer, leverage technology, create local impact, and focused on diversity, both in the crop mixes, the people that are involved, and the approaches to bring crops to market. Since this idea started, we now have dozens of farmers in multiple states collaborating together on trialing new innovation and technology. But it's not enough just to support the farms of the future, but how are these farms impacting our communities? In our work, we're concerned about food justice, food access, economic development, and healthy outcomes. Jade has a long experience in the food business, went to University of Tennessee, worked in industry 10 years, came back and set up a nonprofit here specifically to help young people access fresh food, and has now been working with us 2 years, making sure the work we do is centered on the communities that matter. So in response to everything that's gone on, COVID, even some of the issues we're having with food insecurity before that, can you tell us some of the observations you've seen that we're trying to have positive impact around?
Sure. I think COVID has basically kind of exacerbated some of the things that were already going on in terms of our food system and supply chain, the disruption, the need for more farmers, the need to really support the folks that are anchored in their communities, that are trying to do good deeds, and basically just need some resources, access to capital, access to new markets if they've had to pivot their business, and just providing that support.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, Jade, but when we worked with rural farmers, one of the things we noticed, whether it was a large farm or a small farm, often the farmer was the last one to be involved in thinking about innovation till it was ready to hit market. And as we were talking about that, we sort of realized, well, there are people anchored even in urban neighborhoods that are actively farming right now, but have never been pulled around into a network. So could you kind of talk about that network a little bit?
Sure. So Ag Launch has an urban ag network full of farmers, nonprofit organizations, and for-profit businesses that are, anchored in their communities. They all have some type of education and training component to their work that they're doing. So it's all about uplifting one another and continuing to be able to provide food access. So they're not the only ones that are helping bring fresh food into the community. It's how do you work with the younger generation and make sure that this whole thing is sustainable.
Well, yeah, thank you. And we're going to talk about that a lot more this morning and then in the field day this afternoon. Before we give you more details about the rest of the day and what you're going to see this morning at the Digital Acre, I want to introduce John Butler. He's the president of Agricenter International. They're our host for this farm that you'll tour this morning. And before that was a 5th generation farmer and worked in agribusiness. So John, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Pete. I want to thank Ag Launch and obviously all of you out there that are watching. Just from the standpoint of being engaged in the industry and supporting organizations like Ag Launch. Obviously, Agricenter is really happy to be a partner, and we love the fact we've got a 1,000-acre research and education center right here in Memphis, Tennessee. One of the cool things we're doing in the midst of this pandemic is still pushing the opportunities of developing a strong agriculture infrastructure, specifically supporting companies that are interested in doing research here in the Mid-South. So Agricenter has announced our new Innovation District, which is a new 40-acre research park. You'll hear more about that and then over the next couple of weeks, but certainly we welcome you. We thank Ag Launch for their partnership, and we're excited about the program today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, John. So the rest of the format for the day, just want to make sure if you made it onto this, you made it to first steps. That's good. This is the Ag Tech plus Sustainability Goals equals farm-centric innovation. So we'll be having a conversation over the next 45 minutes about sustainability, how we measure it, and how we then add startup companies into that measure in capacity in order to drive innovation in the future. So we're going to talk about that for the next 45 minutes. After that, if you go to aglaunchfieldday.com, you will be able to access 5 videos from some of our farmers where they've been testing and looking at the innovations that we're talking about this morning. At lunch, there'll be a live Zoom chat time led by Connie Bowen, our Director of Innovation and Investment, where we're going to look at farmer-owned data, ecosystem markets, and even investment of capital, all from a farm-centric innovation perspective, and how farmers can be thinking differently about creating value outside of just the crops that they own. And then lastly, at 3 o'clock, we'll have a tour at Greenleaf Learning Farms. It's a certified organic farm, thinking through a lot of the same principles that we're doing now, and that'll be led by Jade and I. We'll go through that farm, and then there'll also be 4 additional videos released of some of the other partners we have that are impacting their communities through agriculture. So we hope today is encouraging. We hope that you get something out of it. We look forward to finding new ways to partner with you. And next up, I'm going to introduce 2 of our key team members, and we're going to start talking a little bit about some of the startup companies we work with. So first, this is Paul Kennedy. He's a field trial manager with Ag Launch. He's the past president of Tennessee Ag Production Association. Previously has held breeding, R&D, and product management positions at Helena, Garst, and DeKalb, and has a BS in agronomy from University of Tennessee at Martin. And this is Margaret Oldham. She's had a business development consulting role, now is leading our Mentor Pro network in our Ag Launch 365 Accelerator program. She's a Mississippi State alum, grew up on a dairy farm, helped build a startup, and also has more years than you ever will let, we don't know, a lot of experience in working with corporate agribusiness and thinking through how to get products to market. And so thank you. I'm going to ask you, the first question is just, Margaret, why are you here at Ag Launch? What gets you excited about this?
Well, I'm specifically here at Ag Launch because I'm super excited about innovation in agriculture. And the opportunity to bring diverse people, diverse ideas to agriculture. We're an industry that has kind of been inward focused, and this is our opportunity to really thrive as we grow for the future. I love the way Ag Launch works with innovators and founders to bring their ideas to the farmer, let the farmers get engaged in the innovation early stage, which we know is critical to success long term. And I love the idea of providing mentorship. So that's why I love working on the Mentor Network and Mentor Pro.
That's great. Well, thank you. Paul, what are you doing here at Ag Launch?
Yeah, Pete, I came on in last November, came out of the corporate world doing R&D most of my life, and Ag Launch has shown me a different approach to being tied with the grower themselves, the farmers in the farmer network, being able to be on their farms again, and the startups, working with both of those, and giving me the opportunity to run a digital acre out here at the Agricenter.
So let's talk about the farmer network. Everything we do centers on having a network of farmers that partner with us. So can you talk about that experience, Paul, first on just now you've gotten out in the field your first season, just what kind of growers you've been interacting with, where are they, just a little bit of color on that.
Well, yeah, it's amazing. Our farmer network are full of large farmers with multiple thousands of acres, all the way down to 1 acre when it comes to vegetables and growing in hoop houses. But for the most part, being on their farms and watching these great farmers actually are tied to loving the technology that they're wanting to get their hands on. And it's really a good thing that they are early adapters, because we need more technology across the U.S. in the farming communities.
Great. Well, thank you. Can you kind of add to that? We have a whole process of involving farmers even before we get to the field.
Absolutely. This is so exciting, because we not only have farmers trialing the technology, but we also have farmers engaged in the selection process. We're probably one of the few accelerators, if not the only one, that engages the farmer network from the very beginning. So just yesterday, I sent a message out to our farmers and said, hey, we've got 22 technologies we're considering. We'd like your thumbs up, thumbs down vote. And we'd like to know if you're willing to trial it on your farm if that opportunity comes about. So we'll get their input, and then we'll narrow down, kind of, streamline our funnel, and then we'll have 4 farmers, a couple from Tennessee, a couple from Iowa, who will actually participate in a pitch interview process and help us make the final selection. So once we get those teams that are selected, the 10 that come through the row crop challenge, we will then feed them out the other side of the funnel, and they'll get to be on a farm like this, trialing their technology with Paul.
Yeah, and it's really great. If you look at the numbers, adoption of ag tech has been really, really slow compared to how much investment has gone in. And the reason is there just has not been the right process where farmers are able to be involved really at that granular level, like Margaret said, all the way down to up or down, should we move this one forward in the pipeline? And so that's the front end. The long end is it's a 3-year process. So we take companies through, let's go out, proof of concept, kick the tires, see if this will even work, to then a beta testing where we expand to more farmers, and then ultimately peer-to-peer marketing that by year 3 you should be able to get upswing with farmers across multiple acres and multiple states already engaged. So Paul, by the way, it's really great to have you. It's added a whole new strength. The other new strength has been this project you're working on here with the Digital Acre. Could you kind of talk about that a little bit, the purpose and why do we have this small plot in the middle of our overall huge farmer network?
Yes, absolutely. This was a great idea. Pete actually generated this in his mind to execute a 3-year study with corn, beans, and cotton. And this particular location we call the Digital Acre. We will eventually have multiple locations around the regions across the U.S. But for this, at the Agricenter, we are following the Cotton Trust Protocol that has been generated to set new standards across our supply chains or to the end users of the fiber of the cotton. It is being carried on into the soybeans as well and the corn. But at the Digital Acre here, I have the love for all 3 of these crops, watch them from beginning to end, so that in the fall when we harvest, we will be able to plant cover crops and start over a second generation of 2nd year rotation. But for the most part, Pete, it's just been great to be back outside with the growers and at the Digital Acre kicking the dirt.
One of the things, Margaret, you may have a comment on this too, but one of the great things about the Digital Acre, this concept was we've got like 150,000 acres of farms now across 5 states trialing technology, and if something was not working or we needed to make a smaller control research scale plot, we now have a place to do that instead of running all over the place looking to either troubleshoot or to drive with a little bit more of a research objective. So do you want to comment on the farm, anything else on the farmer network?
Yeah, just that this kind of becomes our hub, if you will. So it's a central location for everything to be here. So if somebody needed to fly into the Memphis airport, get right over here in 20 minutes and see what we're doing, there's that opportunity. So that's pretty exciting. We've got Paul managing this whole process, and I think it's a great showcase opportunity for the technologies that our founders bring to us.
Yeah, I wanted to add, we talk a lot about the startups and the farmers, but we do cooperate with universities. So there's a bunch of really interesting university projects popping around the country around measuring at a digital level every activity from the soil microbe through plant health, and then being able to look at that. So we're inviting other collaborators that like this idea of having a fully measured research farm, but that is trying to drive new types of innovation on the farm. We hope to have other partners pulled into that. I do want to also thank, while we're on Digital Acre, we have 2 direct funders. If you go to our website around the field day, aglaunchfieldday.com, there's a great list of partners that are funders, cooperators in the work, expansion partners in other regions, but U.S. Commerce, EDA, and IN2, which has driven some projects through National Renewable Energy Lab and Danforth Center, are the direct funders of this Digital Acre project and the Data Commons, and we appreciate that support there. So it's about startups connecting them with farmers. You'll hear this later. We started it here in Tennessee. We hatched this plan. Our Tennessee Department of Ag backed it, where farmers would take equity in companies and that the state would give a little bit of cost share support. We're now 36 companies into this. So every company we touch, a farmer owns a piece of, and we're driving it through this model. And so we're going to talk about 3 or 4 today. I wanted to talk while we're still standing here about Shepherd. It was a company, it's some individuals that were at Syngenta, spin out and built this company. And what I liked about them from the beginning is they shared a philosophy that I have, and that is we have to think about individual, really farm plots. How do you manage those plots, how to optimize that, and then connect those plots together, and then we can do all the big sort of machine learning and data crunching and some of the stuff the larger companies like to do. So the Shepherd crew saw the same thing. How do we think about labor, energy cost, how to manage on a field? So can you talk a little bit about our interaction with them so far and what farmers are engaged?
Yeah, Shepherd is a fascinating software platform that actually assists the growers, farmers to manage very accurately, more so with the way the software is set up. With Shepherd, all they need is a phone and download the app once they're into the program, and they can control fields states away. They can control workers, labor, people, equipment, all from their phone at this time. It is, don't you think that, Margaret, it's one of those pieces of software that once it was built, they knew what they could do to help the grower?
Absolutely, and I grew up on a dairy farm, but we had crops. We raised all our own feed, and so I just think about how my dad would have loved having a tool like this, rather than spending hours trying to explain to our help what to do each day. And I think the guys that were helping us on our farm would have loved having a list to check off and report in. So when I look at this, I just look at how this is such a cool management tool right in your pocket. You know, easy to access, easy to update and change, and everybody's on the same plan. That's so cool on a farm.
It is. Well, and it's been interesting to watch it evolve. So we have a large collaborator, Mid-South Family Farms, which is Scott Fullen and Rose and their farms, and they're at 17,000 acres, 200 miles apart in 3 locations. So they're using the tool, which is exciting and exactly what we want. But then in the same network of farmers, Shepherd was able to partner with Rose Creek, and you'll be able to see a little video after this field tour this morning, to actually develop a version for small farmers. And it's been fantastic because very different problems, but equal complexity. So do you have a comment about that, Mark?
I do, because I think Shepherd is a perfect example of how a founder came in with one idea, and then they listened to the farmers, and they listened to large farmer, small farmer, and created a tool that could work for both. Tyler McGee and his team are really excel at that, and I think our founders that come in and listen to the farmers and tweak and twist and turn and pivot wind up with a much better product when they're ready to go to the market.
Right, I agree. The other one we want to talk about that, again, we can kind of see Shepherd on the phone, but what when you think about Shepherd, it's our tool of organizing both how the work happens here and now how the work happens in the overall farmer network. Another tool you can't see right in front of us is we have a partnership, one of many we have in Iowa, with Continuum Ag. They went through Margaret's accelerator program, and now we're doing field trials with us to mirror what is going on in Iowa with our partners there. So can you talk about Continuum a little bit, Paul, and what farms we've been working with here and here at
Sure.
Acre?
Yeah, Continuum Ag is a magnificent piece of platform that you get into soil health with Mitchell Hora, and he is very well-rounded in soil health. He is on a zoning soil mapping type situation instead of the grid map that you will find in a lot of areas. But on his zoning operation, he can come in to farmers like we have Ray Sneed over in North Memphis and Millington. He's on a large farm there this year running trials, as well as Savannah, which is kind of a totally different river bottom atmosphere environment. So the Continuum Ag gives recommendations to the grower based on the way they soil test, you could say.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, all the farms we work with, are grid soil sampled, looking at NPK, looking at soil health one way, adding things like Mitchell. We've had a company, we're also pulling tests for microbiometer, and others that are looking at other aspects of microbiome, soil health, carbon, and that's what it's all about for us. Is we want to put these interventions in, we want to be able to measure them and then apply them to something that we hope has an economic and a sustainability benefit for farmers. You've spent a lot of time with Mitchell and
Yes.
that team as well.
Yes, and Mitchell's another guy, young guy, Iowa State grad, who really has a passion for regenerative agriculture, and he turned that passion into a business because he knew he needed tools to help better manage the plans for his farm, and he's thought, well, maybe other farmers do too. So he turned that passion into a business. Again, has been really an awesome listener to our team and to the farmers, and we're super excited about their path and where they're headed.
Great, that sounds good. Well, we're going to revisit with you all in just a few minutes on 2 additional technologies, but I wanted to invite my friend Andy Jordan to come up. We've been talking the last, since the field tour started this morning, about sustainability. How do we think about measuring that through things like the Cotton Trust Protocol? Andy was the Field to Market 2019 Trusted Advisor of the Year. He's a pioneer in sustainability, working with farmers, and has been helping startups. I will tell you, adding this to my notes, watch the videos of Andy on YouTube of how he interacts with farmers. Whether you're a startup or somebody bringing innovation to agriculture, he knows how to do it. Previous to that, he was the Vice President of Technical Services for National Cotton Council, was at Lockheed, and has a PhD from Clemson, and has just been, when we talk about mentor, somebody that's trying to help new innovation, Andy has been crucial to that. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, Andy, and I just kind of want to hear the inside scoop on how we think about farm sustainability. So you've been involved with sustainability metrics since the beginning. Can you kind of talk to me about the evolution of Keystone to Field to Market, Cotton Trust Protocol? Just help us understand the landscape a little bit.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for this chance to talk about my very favorite subject, and that is sustainability in agriculture in a meaningful way. Looking at evolution of the Keystone, the Field to Market, essentially it goes back before that, because part of my efforts at the National Cotton Council was interacting with farmers and researchers on one side, the textile processors, brands and retailers at the other. And for many, many years, our brand and retailer customers have been saying, listen, you are doing a great job in agriculture, in the U.S. agriculture. Tell us more about it. What are your metrics? How do you measure it? And unfortunately, before that, it was very difficult for me to give them specific metrics on energy production, greenhouse gases, water use efficiency, soil health, and so on. So with that, we developed through Field to Market effort, eventually Field to Market, a coalition of commodity agriculture, along with conservation and wildlife NGO groups, along with agribusiness groups, along with technology providers and universities and other technology providers, with the idea that we will develop metrics and measure outcomes more so than how you did it, as long as it's right and ethical and doing the right thing. But what are the outcomes? How you measure? So we developed these tools. Now, fast forward to 3 or 4 years ago. The brands and retailers of textile products around the world are continuing to want to know more. Finally, we have tools developed to measure these through the Field to Market activities, which we are taking this field right here, whether it's 1 acre field or 1,000 acre field, and developing metrics around the fiber coming off. If you are a company in Europe or Asia or the US, and you have targets for your science-based initiatives, that is, what's your contribution to dealing with reducing greenhouse gases? We will be able to provide from our metrics. You use cotton from our protocol, which is going to be developed. You can measure how well you're doing toward your corporate objectives. Now, let's go moving forward now to the protocol. About 3 or 4 years ago, we said, you know, it's great, we've looked back, looked at tremendous progress, but what are we going to do for the future? So we assembled a group of top scientists, top economists that I know, and had them go through a process of developing goals. Let's develop goals, 10-year goals, even 30-year goals. where do we need to be in agriculture, especially in this case in cotton, to meet our goals? What are these goals? So we go through a process, and essentially, to shorten the story, we develop a 10-year goal of 2025, looking at a 2015 baseline of land use. We want to improve land use efficiency. In other words, reducing the amount of land to produce a pound of cotton by, I think, 15%. What about energy? We have goals of reducing energy use by 19%. We have goals of increasing our water use efficiency by another 19%. Don't hold me to these exact numbers, but those are significant goals. Then we've got these goals, we published it. How are we going to get there? This is getting to what we're doing right here. One of the things that we are looking at in order to meet these really aspirational goals of greenhouse gases, soil loss, energy, water use efficiency, how we do that, new technology is so important. This is getting into the unknown. We know that we can do it, but we don't have all of the tools, all the technologies. So what you're looking at Ag Launch is the assimilation of lots of good ideas, develop those into commercial platforms. We pointed to, I don't know if you can see the robot over here that can help us to understand what's going on from the ground up. You see in the background some sensor technologies there to help us understand what's going on below the ground and also on top of the ground. It wasn't part of this video, but I think the background here, we've got bamboo patch showing the biodiversity. They're actually harvesting bamboo now for the zoo, for the panda bear. Also in the background, there's beehives there, demonstrating some of the biodiversity on pollinators. So the whole point here, this is a holistic approach. We talk about cotton, we talk about soybeans, we have corn. There are very few cotton farmers that farm only cotton. There's a rotational system with these other crops. In this part of the country, soybeans and corn, sometimes peanuts, sometimes grain sorghum. This is what sustainable agriculture is all about looking at a holistic system with the basic metrics, but also the other intrinsic factors such as the ecosystem services of biodiversity.
Well, those attributes, there's 9 of them, and it's exciting. We actually, our startups, I think, as you know, we categorize them how they fit in those attributes because we're starting to think about that. But from a farm level, how does the Cotton Trust Protocol work? How do you sign up? What does a farmer need to do to participate?
First, it's a commitment to say, listen, I understand the need for developing metrics, developing a road of continuous improvement. And how can we do that? The Cotton Trust Protocol is a method where through the Trust Protocol Office, working with an organization called the SEAM, which you'll have a chance to hear from the CEO of that in a few minutes, developed a software program in which a farmer can go in, register, make a commitment of continuous improvement, and that commitment involves collecting data on the inputs to the crops, providing the output of the crops, how many pounds you're getting for it, how much water went in, plant protection products, plant health products, and so on, and beginning to develop a plan of practices, best management practices that they are either conducting or experimenting with, or have plans for introducing into their agriculture. So with that, the farmers sign up, get registered, and there's an additional process in which brands and retailers can latch on to this platform and understand how they can access and they can get access to wonderful data coming off of these farms.
That's great. Now, that works for cotton. We talked about some of the other crops. On the digital acre, we have cotton, soybeans, and corn. Of course, we have farms with a whole lot of other diversity. How would farmers from other commodities start getting involved in similar protocols or measuring the way that you all are doing in cotton?
Great question, and I would say almost unequivocally, other commodities are doing various innovative programs on sustainable agriculture. On the particular one with the protocol, there's a lot of interest on how these protocols, plural, could work for other crops? Pick 'em, peanuts, soybeans, cotton. Are they ready for a full-blown protocol where individual farmers are signed up? Today, probably not. Tomorrow, probably so. So this is a platform that I see evolving into really a fully farm-level enterprise-based platform.
Right, and we love that, the idea of a whole farm system working together and measuring all the attributes, not just the commoditized, out product. So you know our model pretty well. We have farmers partnering with startups. The farmers now are actually investing money, but traditionally have been running field trials, giving input, helping with product development, and taking equity. So if we're building companies that help hit these kind of sustainability metrics, and farmers own some of those companies, is that going to help with adoption of the practices? Is that another tool in that toolbox?
I absolutely. I love the idea of continuing to develop these tools. They're tools that are developed for farmers, by farmers, with farmers, and ownership of farmers. Absolutely. First of all, they've got to work. And part of what Ag Launch is doing is help to demonstrate how they can work and how they do work. That's so important part of the process.
Great. Well, Andy, is there anything else you want to share with us? I hope you feel like this project's moving in the right direction. If we succeed, we will have hundreds of thousands of acres scaling technology, but measuring it again, not just on yield times Chicago price minus inputs, but based on thinking about a whole farm system. So any other thing you feel like that we need to hear about today on Cotton Trust?
That's a great question. And the end point here of these, in this case, the textile consumer. The textile consumers, they really want to know that the source of their fiber, the source of their food, is being grown responsibly. This is providing a platform along with the protocol as a platform, but what you're doing with the technology, we cannot meet our goals without the new technologies similar to what's being developed right here.
Let me ask you one more in terms of farmer adoption and monetizing this. On the food side, I think our number right now is 14.6 cents for every food dollar that's spent goes back to the farmer. And on a farmer perspective, it's going to be easy to think, hey, I'm going to put all these practices in. They're going to expect the practices, so now I have more work without changing my percentage of income. So what are some things we can do to add more monetary value on putting these practices in place?
Another great question, which you're full of. Great question. First of all, part of the reason we're doing this is access to markets. We have customers, brands and retailer customers say, listen, I really need to do this, and for us to use your fiber, you need to do this. You need to demonstrate it. Are you going to pay me more money? I don't know. That's kind of where we are. But as we look at it, there will be some that pay more. But the really important thing is what are other extrinsic services. We mentioned the ecosystem services. We mentioned some of your startups are helping us to understand carbon, soil carbon. Soil carbon is one of our goals, increase soil carbon. Monetizing that, you've got some startup companies that are helping us to understand how to monetize that, how to get it in the farmer's pocket. Those are things that bring more people to adopt these practices. And I can go on and on with other systems. I point to the robot here. We, in the future, will begin to substitute perhaps some chemical interventions with robots to do these things without the footprint of a good chemicals, which are costly.
Yep. I think that's right, and I think this creates a unique opportunity for a farmer to take control. We talked about the theme of this being sort of facing the uncertainty and building into that, and I think you're not going to be able to go wrong with showing and demonstrating how you can measure your farm, adding goals along all 9 of these attributes, and kind of play the long game there. I hope that having ownership in some of the startups helps grease the skids a little bit and makes it a little bit easier for the grower to be engaged.
It is, and it's really exciting what you're doing with Ag Launch, what we are doing with Ag Launch.
Right. I appreciate that. Andy, thank you so much, and look forward to this continued dialogue.
Okay.
So next I'm going to invite Mark Pryor. He's the CEO and chairman of the SEAM. Since their inception in 2000, have facilitated cloud-based trading of millions of cotton bales and millions of tons of peanuts. He's been featured in Wall Street Journal, Forbes, NASDAQ for spearheading ag tech initiatives related to blockchain, distributed ledger, involving the same topic, sustainability, traceability. He's also on the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. So Mark, you're another one of the many people in Memphis that are putting this together in kind of a new way. Can you just give us the background a little bit on the SEAM and in our partnership with Ag Launch and just kind of talk that through a little bit?
Absolutely. So I feel like the SEAM is kind of a startup in and of itself, although we started 20 years ago in Memphis. But yeah, the SEAM was founded by leading agribusinesses with ag tech as the focus. The only thing the company does is agriculture. That's all we do is software innovation for agriculture. And we've advanced quite a bit over the past 20 years. The landscape has certainly changed. But I think the real statement, I guess, is you've got technologists out here in the field that want to understand the industry that they serve so that they can provide the right technologies. And it's exciting to be in that space.
That's great. So since the SEAM, tell us a little bit about the formation. I mean, it was really interesting, and a lot of people, if they're watching this and they're not in the cotton business, they may think this is all about cotton. Well, we have this unique opportunity because in most commodities, the value chain doesn't work together. And I think cotton people would argue they don't work together all the time, great. But in the example of the SEAM, we've got all 6 of the value chain partners partnering.
Yes.
Could you talk about that for just a minute?
Sure. So it's interesting. Back in the year 2000 when the company was formed, the internet was just getting interesting. And at the time, these fierce competitors from both the supply side and the merchandising side came together and said, we need to collaborate in order to create some innovation for the agriculture industry. And we're seeing that happen today. I mean, it was really something that was just unheard of at the time, but we're seeing a resurgence of that kind of collaboration between major competing organizations from a commercial side working together for the innovation and digitization of the commodities.
It's really, really cool. Well, I'm going to jump into a couple questions. We've talked about this a lot. Depending on what circle, you got very different views on it, but both the Mark Pryor hat and the SEAM hat, when we think about farm data, and we also think about, I'd say, even new gatekeepers. We've got new people coming in with data that are replacing even some of the grain traders and others, right, but still getting in the middle. So kind of first from farm level data, love to hear how you think about that, who should be owning what, how should farmers think about it, and let's kind of start there.
Yeah, that's a good question, Pete. So it's interesting that 90% of the data, they say, in all the world today was generated in the last 2 years alone. So 90% of all the data in the world, the last 2 years it was generated. And it's because of things that Dr. Jordan and Paul and others and Margaret was saying. Margaret, sensor data, camera data, drone data, all this data exhaust has come about. And it's mounds and mounds of data, but I think the real challenge and what we have as an opportunity is how can we make sense of that data? How can we gain insights from the data? Those trends, those anomalies in the data, how can we find opportunities in it? Either with problem solving, because you see this anomaly that you need to address, or these opportunities where you see this thing that's working over here because the data shows it. How can we do more of that? So it's really the challenge, I think, and the opportunity is how can we make sense of all this data that's being generated in the world today?
Well, it seems like there's kind of two sort of approaches right now. Farmers are collecting data that they own. There are companies that need to do that to develop products. We talk a lot, Mark, about disruption.
Yes.
What does that really look like? Are there some different ways to think about how farmers can interact with these startups or think about their data outside of what's normally going on transactionally?
Yeah, so it's all about standards, and standards is not the most elegant topic to discuss when you deal with technology, but it's absolutely vital to the innovation that needs to occur on top of that. And I think we're seeing a lot of that taking place. So you hear this term commoditization of information, being able to monetize information. And the only way you can do that is if you have standards in place that people can adopt and support, and that you have systems that can interoperate with each other. Now, it doesn't do us any good if all of us here speak a different language. We can't really communicate well. But what's happening in the technology space is this common language in agriculture that we can interoperate together, we can share information, a farmer can look at their data as an asset in and of itself and to be able to repurpose that and to convey certain information to others that apply to that particular need of the side. So it's a monetization of the information, but built around standards and decentralization.
Yep. So, and we have this in common too. We talk about open source a lot. A lot of people, if it's a startup raising money or you've been in the traditional sort of software digital space, you might think about it differently, but we both share this idea of let's get some open source frameworks out there and build around that. So we collaborate on a few things. We're going to talk about data commons at lunch, but let's talk a little bit about the Open Market
Sure.
Consortium project. Pretty interesting, thinking about how do we use distributed ledger to connect small and medium growers with very special products into new types of purchasers.
Yes, yes. So the open technologies are very interesting, and if you think about it, a lot of people don't know it, but your TVs, your phones, your cameras, they all use operating systems that are built on open source technologies. And it's hundreds and hundreds, millions of devices that are built on these open standards. And what's exciting about the Open Market Consortium is it is also built around open standards, because it's about collaboration, it's about community input, it's about those that have passion for that particular thing, whether that's agriculture or specialty crops, and they want to contribute to the advancement of those technologies going forward. Now this platform, this ecosystem that we're creating is going to outlive us, right. And we need the open source community to take it forward and to run with it and to build on top of it to make it something better and better as we go forward. So I would look at this project, which is really exciting, as a mashup between 20 plus years of marketplaces that are online, on the web, mashed up with new innovative technologies like blockchain and smart contracts. Yep. Together, this provides this ecosystem of innovation built on history and an experience model that we can leverage going forward.
Well, and for somebody that's been a small farmer and grown specialty crops, it just, you can tell I salivate over this idea of if you can have market transparency on attributes, it starts changing a whole lot of other parts of the game, and that's where this sort of innovation engine kicks in. So again, if you go to aglaunchfieldday.com, you'll see a list of partners, yeah. But the SEAM and Ag Launch have been really blessed to be joined with Wallace Center, which is Winrock, Foundation for Food and Ag Research, Mississippi State,
sure.
Tennessee State University, St. Jude, and some others. But we welcome more in around this idea because what we're going to launch is this new way or alternative on how small producers or anybody producing something with a special attribute can find markets. And then there's all the traceability and other pieces that go along with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about non-commodity specialty crops. I mean, it's about conveying those attributes through a standard digital channel that ultimately brings more money to the specialty crop farmer. They need that voice, and that voice is with data, and I think we've got something really interesting here.
I like saying the voices with data. That's a good piece of it. When you think about, we've talked about Cotton Trust Protocol, measuring the startups, not just on yield, which I kind of pick on a lot, but on how does it fit in the system. You know, you all are very instrumental in building the digital framework for Cotton Trust, but moving into other areas. So can you kind of talk about sustainability, you all's role as a company in that, and even what other crops are coming down the pipe?
Yeah, so the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol that we are in partnership with the National Cotton Council is really just the first crop of many. Dr. Jordan spoke to that earlier, that we are in discussions with other agriculture crops like peanuts, soybeans, sorghum, to provide this ecosystem for sustainability. So I think it's exciting where it's going, and you know, we're excited to be a part of it as well.
Well, back I asked Dr. Jordan about the field level, what does it mean for the grower?
Yeah.
Could you kind of talk through what it means for a grower now, the fact the SEAM exists, trading, and then what it may mean as we think out 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, sure. So really the SEAM and the internet in general has allowed us to level the playing field. So through a marketplace, they can provide, it provides product discovery globally. So a farmer that has 80 bales in Fayette County can have visibility of his crop to global merchandisers, folks that are looking at that. And that's what we want to do with specialty crop, is the same kind of idea, but also with the sustainability models. And you look at the sustainability side of it. Sustainability is going to and is underpinning all the technology advancements that we're doing today at the SEAM. And we see that, and we want to make sure that we have that as a very low-level foundational layer to all the technologies that we're releasing in collaboration going forward. And I mentioned collaboration because that's what it's all about. We work with Shepherd and the Data Commons, and we've had numerous discussions with Nori and some of the other initiatives there to see how the commercial side can help and partner with those initiatives as well. Because I still consider the SEMA startup. We're a 20-year-old startup, and we've learned some things over the years, and where we can help contribute to the advancement of the startups of today, we want to do that, and I think it's quite exciting.
I appreciate that, and I think, when you look at the overall landscape, I've talked about this a lot, there's, every city that has a couple ag corporate headquarters wants to be the ag tech capital, every region, and starting with our Tennessee Department of Ag, saying, we want to spread this out with farms, we need to go beyond Tennessee, we need to think at a field level. The SEAMS philosophy seems very consistent with that, but I do believe we're building something different here than maybe other areas just based on how we're looking. You got the field behind you, how we're looking, starting at the field, innovate there, and then figure out how to move it into standards and digitization and monetization. So kind of how do you think about that?
Yes, I just think we're in a unique spot here. We've got incredible logistics here in the area. We've got multiple crops we can touch and feel and work with and learn together. To provide those kind of technology services that are going to advance the industry. I mean, I think to understand sustainability and what it is and what it means, you have to actually see it.
Yep.
You have to experience it.
Yep.
And to have that, you can touch it and feel it, and right here is pretty remarkable, and I think sets us apart from from folks that are sitting in cubes in other parts of the country.
Right. Well, thank you very much. We, as you know, have built long-time partnerships with the groups we work with. Ag Ventures Alliance in Iowa is a good example. We now have some folks in Oregon. The SEAM's a good company here that we've been interacting with. Can you talk a little bit about these other regions? We just started partnering with a group in Oregon. It's opposite of here, 150 crops in like three counties. So how do you kind of think about taking some of our learnings and spreading them out to some of our other farmers?
Yeah, well, I think the common language is agriculture, and where it applies in one area, there's certainly slight variations, some cases large variations in other regions, but you can take a model and extend that out. I mean, we work with a lot of farmers in California as well, with Pima cotton, different types of growths of cotton. And there's different regionality, different innovation, obviously California. But when you come back here to the Delta, I think the best technology is built by people that use it and that need it on their farms.
Yep.
I mean, you see that. You see that with Shepherd, you see that with others. They needed it, they saw the need, and they solved the problem. They were problem solvers. And so that kind of innovation you'll see locally, but it can extend to other sectors of the country as well.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. This was great, and I think the connection, hopefully, to the group we're communicating with can just kind of see this whole ecosystem that we're building, because it definitely is unique and interesting. So thank you for being with us.
Very
under different
exciting.
circumstances, I'd shake your hand, but thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. I'm going to invite the whole Ag Launch team back up, and we're going to do our kind of closing remarks. And I do want to repeat being thankful to Mark and for Dr. Jordan for their thoughts. So if the Ag Launch team would move forward into here. Why don't we let's go ahead and have a discussion. We can all just kind of be in this section. Sorry if you're going to have to edit a little bit of manual. Are we waiting on mics?
Well, there was one that broke.
Okay.
So we're having to trade.
Mark, if you want to join the discussion, we'll just see how this kind of goes. I just wanted to end by building on what we've all talked about this morning. We have a pipeline of technologies connecting into these farms. We want to think uniquely about how we measure what we're even allowing the startups to participate in. If we start now and we're skating to the wrong puck, that's not going to get us there. So I love what you described, what Mark described. That gives us a foundation, these attributes which we know the future of agriculture is going to have. This afternoon we're going to be on a certified organic farm, which also has a measurable way of moving towards some of the same goals. So we kind of wanted to end, we talked about the startups, and just Paul, kind of punt back to you. Let's talk through one or two more of these, and then we'll tee up for this afternoon. So maybe you could start. I know Grow Guru is a great opportunity for us. Maybe you could talk through that a little bit.
Right. Grow Guru, you'll see one of the sensors above ground here in the cotton. Well, a grower can put this sensor anywhere in his fields that is the best place to measure moisture underground. Grow Guru invented this two-piece operation that there is a piece buried underground they like to refer to as a badger. It has a 5-year lifespan as a battery backup. And it sends out signals to the above ground that they like to call the fox. But above ground piece with this sensor is removable out of the field, so the grower can actually disc or do any kind of implement work he wants to, and it doesn't damage the below ground piece. But it actually is an exciting piece of a tool that the farmers can use to actually monitor the moisture in the ground to manage their irrigation system better, instead of turning it on a Monday and being gone to the lake on Saturday, like I know some of them do. But it's like, this is a piece of equipment that most people that have irrigation systems really need to check out.
And this is just a really, I like the way this is played out for us standing here, because Andy referenced it too. We have this measurable attribute and goal of reducing water and being more water efficient. We know with some crops like corn, we can actually put 50% less water on it if we put it on the right time and get the right yield. So these technologies lead there. The way it's worked with us is that company was moving in perennial crops in California. Awards had raised money. We really liked it. If you've been around sensor technologies, when you say moisture sensor, there's a lot of them, and farmers have tried a lot of them. We really loved what they were trying to do, but also, as Margaret said earlier, the teachable ability to know that they needed to work with different kinds of farmers. So they started 3 years ago working with one of our farmers. He is now a trusted advisor, has equity in the company, and is an investor in the company. From that, we've been able to scale in year 2 to this peer-to-peer and this beta test. So then we had 5 farmers around the region, and now you can actually buy this technology through the Tennessee Co-op, and you've got a real win story out of the whole thing. And it's just been a quality group of people. And you talked about the data over the last 2 years. Now you have a data point that's synchronized with what we want to be collecting and ultimately monetizing on behalf of the farmer with a better product. So thanks for that. Margaret, do you have anything that you want to share on this one at all?
Grow Guru, just that Patrick and his team have really been innovators in even the way they operate their business, in investment funding and such, and to just applaud that, you know, we were able to figure out a way to work with them, bring them to Tennessee, and I think it really has expanded their business.
Well, some people
can I add to those
please.
2 comments? You don't know this, but just a quarter of a mile that way, I've got a plot going on with one using the best management practices, the other one using whatever used in the past. We're using sensor technology underneath. Now, in 1 year into using cover crops on this, we are measuring the water uptake at various levels. We are finding that already in the very first year, we are finding water use efficiencies where the cover crop was growing. Now, that wasn't part of the design, but I'm just saying that's part of us learning.
Yep.
It's a teachable moment. These technologies are so good for helping us understand what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's important about this framework. I mean, I keep going, it's very simple to me. We've been talking about this a long time, but if you're measuring across the 9 attributes, not just yield, then now you can start seeing these correlations, and they all should be correlating. More crop diversity, cover crops, should be better water retention. Those should all, we intuitively know that, master gardeners intuitively know that, but now putting it into practice at scale with business models that work. I mean, that's what it's all about. You ready to drive a robot?
Once I get it fired back up.
There you go.
You're going to have to cut the tape.
Good. Well, no, you're good. I'll just go ahead and tee up the company. Margaret's interacted with them a lot too, but company out of University of Illinois. Again, you'll find in common with Ag Launch, I don't want to say good group of people. We all really enjoy working together. The teams that come here seem like it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air, because what you're seeing this morning, this is what we do all day. Will this work? Can we get in with a farm? Can we kick the tires? And so it's just a very different whole approach, I think, that's thinking about this holistically and kind of really this farm-centered way. So one of the technologies, you want to drive it out, or I don't know if
Yep.
we want to view it there. Don't
Yeah,
run over Mark. But this is a technology at a University of Illinois that already has a nice little business phenotyping in the seed industry. So starting in sorghum and in other crops, helping seed companies figure out what crops to breed from and what lines to keep moving with. What we've been interested in and worked with our sense about is how do we think about crop scouting components? And we've looked at a couple things, but this year, Paul, maybe if you'll describe what specifically we've been doing in terms of collecting data and where we think there might be an opportunity.
Yes, we are running a cotton trial up in Ripley at Scott Fullen's place, and we are already collecting tons of data. With it running through the rows, what we're trying to help EarthSense do is figure out how to write algorithms so that it will count bolls, because we know it already takes stand counts, it takes ear height in corn, it takes plant height. What we're trying to do now with Scott and here at the digital Acre, we're running a trial here as well. It's collecting all this data that is on video from the 4 cameras, and it also has a LiDAR. All that data is uploaded into a piece of software that then you can manipulate the data itself to see what you have, number one, and which way do you need to go to actually figure out how to do the boll counts on a cotton plant. So that's how AgLaunch and Scott are trying to help EarthSense actually get to that point.
And why are those boll counts important, and how do farmers do it? How have they been doing it now without a robot?
Very good question. It's consultants. You have scouts that go out throughout the year. Dr. Jordan can tell you so much more, but what this will do is not replace consultants. It's going to aid the consultants, or it will aid a scout or the farmer himself if he's doing the scouting. What he can do is still do his own scouting, but he just plops this down in a row, let it do its thing a few feet, maybe even just 20 feet, but it will still collect data as well as take action on showing you a fungus on the leaf, not only just the stand count itself, but if we can get to that boll count, that takes a lot of time to actually do to get a good handle on what your crop is going to be bringing to you in yield. But for the same token, you can also see if you have insects. If you start out early with the robot and the consultant is already in the field anyway, he can let it run and then pick it up at the end of the row and go upload all of this data that he has at his fingertips that he didn't have to walk. But for the same token, you could also have a swarm of these if you wanted to. But at this point, we're just trying to help EarthSense bring to the table boll count in cotton for the first time.
It's really interesting, fits in some of the attributes in terms of farm management, how we manage inputs, but it also speaks to this, like, let's just get it in the field. You kind of mentioned that in your comments, Mark, because one thing we for sure believe in is incremental improvement. In a lot of the Silicon Valley driven ag tech, you're looking for the big hit, the one wonder big hit, the other 9 we put by the wayside and try to grow that one. With some of these, just starting this with phenotyping and then biting off, again, it doesn't have to scout every cotton field in the whole field, but if you could pick up a small one of these, Andy, and just plop it down and get some 20-foot lengths and be able to look at nodes and get, it would just be a great addition to the toolkit. And so keeping on adding. I guess Chinmay and the EarthSense team won't mind me teeing this up for next year, but next year we're already now starting to figure out how to look at herbicide-resistant weeds and how to actually terminate them with small robots. And so you will hopefully be able to see a demonstration of that. Check out the videos, as we said. There'll be 5 talking about the technologies we just talked about this morning, actually on farm with some good video of that, so do that. So again, thank you everybody being here. Want to remind you, we'll see you back at lunch at 12 o'clock for the data plus ecosystem markets plus capital equals farm-centric innovation discussion. Connie Bowen, our Director of Investment and Innovation, will be leading that with a really good group of panelists. So join us at noon. Love to have you there. And then
at 3 o'clock, you can join us. Pete and myself will be at Greenleaf Learning Farm. It's one of 2 USDA certified organic small urban farms in Memphis. Agriculture is the largest economic driver in each of the Delta region states, and we understand that the opportunity that exists for ag to impact its local community. So please join us this afternoon, and we're going to see how this organic farm is impacting one of the most impoverished communities in Memphis and in the nation. We hope today is encouraging and it helps to stimulate some great ideas, and we look forward to seeing you later on.